Okay, we're going to go in and start working on the heron. So here we have our mixtures of our gray, which is our burnt sienna, and our ultramarine blue. So I'm going to drop in where I see this dark color. Lightly. His wing. All the way down here. Remember, this dries lighter, so, and you can blot it out if you need to, so don't worry too much. Just be sure you're using a pointy brush. So I'm catching the darks under here, under these feathers. And you don't want a lot of detail on him. Even though he is the focal point, we want to keep him pretty soft. Just suggesting some feathers there. It's a really pretty feather there. So I go in softly so that I won't overdo this. And then I will build it as I go. I have the tiniest little line right here. This is a new brush I'm trying called a King Art gold brush from Amazon. I don't usually buy my brushes from Amazon, but I'm having a hard time finding brushes for my beginners that are affordable. Because I tend to buy more expensive brushes, and I know my students aren't going to be wanting to do that. So all right, I think his eye is a little dark, so let's just lighten that a little bit. Okay, so while we have this really dark on our brush, I'm just going to go in and define these darker areas again to remind me that they're dark. Putting it in loosely, and that's dark there. These little details just really help to bring your painting alive. For some reason I didn't put the burnt sienna in that. I'm not sure why. I'll drop that in. Okay, there's something happening here that I don't have defined, so I'm going to come underneath this board right here. Starts about here, and it gets very dark. That's just the recess inside the boat. Remember to kind of square things off, because that comes all the way up to here. And then there's a line that goes right here. Okay. And then this is kind of seating right here, I believe, is what's going on there. So we're just going to kind of leave that like that right now. So just starting to add a little bit of detail in here. This is an odd, this actually curves. It actually starts here and goes like this, and then stops there. But that's way too dark. So we'll just blot that out. And then it's a little darker here, and there's actually an edge to this. It's more like that. So just making that darker in there, and that'll be a lot bluer also. So that needs to be darker. And I want this soft. I don't want these hard edges, so I'll just keep blotting it back and building it slowly until I get this look I want of this curving around here and going back into here and curving under this. That's kind of what we want. Does that look? And this is very dark. I'm just building those darks. And under here it's dark. There's a tiny little line under here. Okay. That looks really severe right now because we don't have anything else going on in here. This actually is covered in algae, I think. So I'm actually going to go back to my algae color, add a little more yellow to it. And desaturate it. So if I want to desaturate a green, I need to use some kind of a red. So we'll just do the burnt sienna. And that did a nice job there. So now we're going to put in this area here. Which basically just looks like algae. Comes all the way up to here. The algae's also all over here and on that edge, and it's right here. We can't really define that yet. And then it's mixed in. There's a lot of it on these things, so we're just kind of softening all this. Okay, I like that better. Gives us that look. This needs to be a sharp edge right here. So let's get that in. Like that. That's even going to be darker. So we're just going to keep building that dark right there. It's one of the darkest, if not the darkest thing, other than the heron, of course, on the painting. So now I'm going into the heron a little more and using a lighter gray. So if I want a lighter gray, I'm just going to mix a little more of the burnt sienna in there and the blue, and then I'm going to wash it down a little bit more. So then we're going to go in and put in some of these feathers. Make this darker again, building it slowly, keeping it soft. Getting this back in there, around that eye. Okay. Now he is not white. He is actually I think the reflections from all these greens are actually, and the yellows are actually making him a little bit on the yellow side. So I'm going to do the smallest, tiniest yellow wash on him in some places. Even just a little bit of green, mostly water. And just some of these places on him, just give him that softness, and his beak, of course. Where the sun is hitting him, I suppose, is, at least on this side of him, appears to be a little more yellow. Imagine it's reflections. But I'm just going to go ahead and put that on the whites so that he isn't standing out so severely. Okay. And just to make him more interesting, I'm going to take some of that mixture, but mostly with the blue, and just add some darks in here that are really blue between the feathers. Just to make it a little more interesting. Giving him some different feathers here. Blot that out a little bit. And remember, we've got some feather detail going in here, but not a lot. Just softly doing that. We don't want them all to be too much, so. Again, darkening his darks. We're losing a lot of definition on him, so let's blot that out. We'll go back in and toward the end when we get the masking fluid off and really detail him. Okay. So let's work on the boat some, but let's dry it first. We're still pushing our darks darker. So we're just taking the burnt sienna and going back in and making these darks this a little more colorful, a little more contrasty. Is that a word? Still using this small detail brush. Okay, let's make this a little darker back here. Blend it all together a little better so we don't have such a defined difference in here. It is all mahogany, so this is very mahogany right in here. Blend it all together. Yeah, that's better. We don't want it too harsh. If you can't tell your values, just squint down and see if you're getting your values dark enough. This is really dark under here, under the edge of these areas. It's really hard to push that dark as it needs to be under here. But it really needs to be dark to give the to get the realism. And this comes all the way down here. Then we'll just fade it out to over here. And that's better. And once we get the masking fluid off, we'll have a clean edge there, so we're pretty good here. Just lighten that a little bit. Now underneath this, the railing of the boat, the whatever you call this, it is very dark under here. I'm going to go ahead and drop in that dark. And then, once we get it in like that, we're going to touch just the edge here, just to soften it as it comes down. And in between here are these parts of the boat. And this is all darker. Nicer blue or darker blue-green here. This whole thing. And it's nice to let it just run into each other here. Pick up the extra there. And that way, you keep that softness. And I've changed the top of this a little bit, but that's okay. We'll go ahead and put the top on that. That's going to be hitting sunlight there anyway. So, all right. So now we're going to start defining some of these shadows underneath here. And to do that, you're going to need a fairly sharp brush. Pointy brush. So that pretty much goes all the way over to here, under here. Okay. And again, now I'm going to come in and soften just with a damp brush that bottom edge so that it's a soft transition there. That's how you get this nice shadowed effect. Okay. And before you lose your lines completely, it's important to get this edge up under here and define that lap siding there. And some of these shadows are larger up under here, like that. So just smoothing that out. Put that dark back in under here. Just keep adding them. Another way you can do this that has less control would be to wet it first, but if you do that, see, you have much less control. So you can just go back in and pick up anything like that. Or you can blot it if it's too much and smooth it out. Just with a light touch underneath the boards. Here. Here, same thing. Underneath the board here. And it's a little wet. You can do it this way and then go back and soften it with a clean, damp brush. Pick up any excess. Softening that bottom edge. Shadows are soft. They're not generally hard. Sometimes they are. So this is uneven right here, so we'll correct that in a moment. But right now, we're just going to go on and lay these darks in. I see them wider. Again, if we do it easy, it's easier to correct. I like that some of these shadows come down, they're pointy. And then here. You can always go back and soften these things. It's not terribly hard to do. We need to clean this up right here. There's not a definite line here. We need to find that line where that goes. Probably about like that. Okay, I'm liking that. And what we're going to do is go back over and soften these edges. With another layer of the boat.